welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. This is a jacaranda tree that I planted from seed in 2018. It was actually late December 2018. So that makes it about 4 years old, 4 years and a couple months old. Up until this winter, it's looked pretty good. Every winter, I mean, it always does. They're what most people kind of consider like partially deciduous, where they'll start to lose all their leaves just when they start to get some new growth. If you're a regular watcher of my channel, I hope I don't bore you by talking too much about the hurricane and everything, but this was completely defoliated in it. It came back and it was actually like that October, November, December actually came back, had some really beautiful foliage on it and everything. And then we had a pretty hard, it wasn't a freeze, but a pretty good cold snap towards the end of December. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. In hindsight, I should have realized that was all new foliage on there, and it was going to, get burned by the cold, and it sure did. And this one has actually been bare for a long time, and it's just now. See if I can give you guys a better look here. Just now starting to bud out here, right in the trunk area where the most of the sap flow would be. See a little bit of dieback there, just from a pruning mark. And then, see if I can give you guys another good look here. Like right here, you see a little bit of bud swell, just meaning that it's about to produce something. And this one even has a little green coming out of it there. It's been in this pot for just under 2 years. It does go very quickly. I used, that was when I was still using the cheaper mix that I used to buy from the local nursery here. It is actually kind of, it's been looking like a brick. I do think that for a little while, especially when it had no foliage on it, I might have been overwatering some because it didn't really have any need to have that water, so it had no need to kind of drink it up. And then just here over the last 3-4 weeks, I kind of noticed it turning into a little bit of kind of mud. And like I said, just turning really solid. I started getting really worried that perhaps I had caused some root rot or something. But it is at least pushing some growth. I was going to wait till I actually did get this originally repotted. It was April of 2021. I was going to wait until the warmer months, another couple months to do it. But, my theory is that much like a deciduous, right when it starts swelling up, it's when it's really pushing some new roots. And so what I'd rather do, rather than destroying those roots by doing a rough repot in a couple months, I'd rather go ahead and do it now and get it, have it in some better substrate, and then it'll settle in and have this whole growing season to just kind of keep those roots in the better substrate. All right, so I should have mentioned before, just for the purposes of the early part of the video, I had it resting in the training pot I intend to put it in, and I really just had it resting there, just basically for height for the camera. I don't know why I'm pulling these weeds out now, because I'm getting ready to rake all those roots out. That's actually why I left the weeds in there, but haven't looked at this in a long time. Doesn't seem to be jam-packed full of roots. It's definitely jam-packed full of wet-looking material here. I've actually found with that old soil that I used to use, it actually kind of always gets that top layer that seems to get so muddy looking, and then underneath it's still decent soil, still not bad, lava rock showing, things like that. It's not really completely broken down. It seems to break down on top. Bulb pans that I use, the drain holes are a little bit big for the bonsai substrate, so I usually put a screen in there. I was using just some old window screen. I had a bunch, when I first moved into this house, they had a bunch a window screen in the garage. Take care of that. I'm sure I probably included in the early part of the video what this thing looked like when I repotted it the first time. And to be honest with you, it's right around the same size root ball that it was then. Probably could have went another year just in there, especially once I figured out that it was draining well under what I could see. But having it in a little bit of a bigger pot and a little bit of better substrate should do it well. Certainly won't hurt anything. Alright, after a quick internal debate about just putting it back into that bulb pan again, I did decide to go ahead and put it in this pot. I did take a second look at some of those pictures. The trunk has definitely widened out a little bit. I guess it just doesn't really get that many feet of roots like I would see, say, on one of my ficus or something like that. Quite honestly, the information online about Jacaranda bonsai is pretty short. Just so you know, if you Google it, a good 90% of those pictures you're looking at are not Jacaranda. Wisteria, all kinds of things. I think some people are trying to trick you into selling something, but a Jacaranda in bloom in a pot, I have not seen yet, except for with a couple of sections of some things that I think are heavily photoshopped. But anyway, I got the screen in there, got a couple tie downs. All right, get some substrate in there. Again, this is now the better mix, and Weigers has claimed to make the mix even better. Whatever these white particles are were not in the other mix that I used to pay the 45 for 5 gallons for, but I'll take their word for it. I believe them. Settle that in there like that. I had myself half convinced that I was definitely going to tie in the branches and not the root ball, but now that I look at it, or I'm sorry, I had myself convinced I was going to tie in the root ball and not the branches. But now that I look at it, it'll actually give a good, and there's not much of a root ball on this side. And I would like to have it in there at this angle right here. Alright, decided I wanted to try to make it a little bit tighter in the pot. I didn't really want the wire right on the branches, so I found a couple pieces of used screen, just slipped it under there. And I'm going to try to tighten it down a little bit better. And there we go, that's a lot better. The speed that these things grow in Florida, I should be able to cut these wires off in less than a year. I'm even thinking just towards midsummer I should be able to. The idea, there was one point I never tied any trees in, but I started realizing there was a lot of value to it, and I was missing out on, being able to hold them steady in the pot and everything. So I started to on, the ones I feel are necessary. Sometimes do the branches instead of the root ball. This one here even had enough of a root ball to tie in on the one side, and that probably would have been enough. But I just went ahead and did both branches instead. Like I said, the plan is once it gets root bound in there, I'll take it off. And this thing, as long as I haven't killed it here or anything, this thing will just be full and have all kinds of growth on it. You won't even be able to see that for the most part. And there we go. I'll keep it in my lanai for a little while. It's just my little protected place with a little bit of shade. Kind of keeps the animals off of it too, although right now my lanai have no screen, so definitely not keeping the animals out. I had to chase 2 doves out of there this morning. Can't wait to show you the updates on this guy. I'm going to go get its big sister. Alright, and then this is the big sister. This was planted at the exact same time as the other one was. This one actually did spend a little bit of time in the ground. That's why it's so much thicker than the other one. I had this one. The other one I showed you at the beginning, I did have it planted in like a wicker basket. Had it sitting right on the ground and allowed it to get an escape route and everything. This one was actually in a terracotta pot with another seedling that took off with it. In hindsight, again, hindsight's always 20/20, but I left them together for way too long. And when I went to go separate them, I actually put this one in the ground. I put the other one back in a pot. This one was much more healthy. I thought at that point I wanted one in the ground. The one in the pot didn't survive the repotting. This one obviously did, and eventually I just dug it up. Right now I actually have a flame tree like right in the same hole that I had this in, but I actually have that planted on a tile. I'm going to experiment with letting that grow quite a while and see what happens there. But this had the same thing with, as far as like getting the hurricane damage and then having a bunch of new foliage on there with the freeze. Clearly it didn't take it quite as hard as that other one did. This one's been leafing out for quite a while now. You can see all this. It's just standard kind of dieback on a couple of these. I don't know if you guys will really be able to see that. I don't know if there's a good enough background. They actually look burned. Some of them look burned after the storm, and then, some of them, some of it leafed back out, and then we got that cold snap, and then again it burned it again. So at this point here, I'm just going to clean it up. This one's only been in this pot, I think, for 1 year now, maybe about 1.5 years. It's in much better substrate, much bigger pot too, so I should be able to kind of let that go for a little while. I'm also going to take couple of these inner growing branches out, just simply because as small as these leaves are now, up there's, you guys can see even how small that is, but as small as even, these are now, these leaves will get to be like this long in probably, I'd say 2-3 weeks these are going to explode here. But I like to take off some of these that are growing like into the canopy some, just simply because these wind up shading it out anyway. I might even cut this long growth off here. I'm going to see what it looks like after I get the rest of it cleaned up. But I don't want too many shoots coming from one spot. It's not a traditional, formal upright by any means. I do have I have a picture of this picture here is from one in my neighborhood. I mean, they all do get that candelabra look where they get all the branching from one spot, so I'm not concerned about having 3 branches from that spot. But then I took off the couple that were growing in there just simply because the ones above it and or next to it or even over here would shade it out anyhow. And then you wind up with kind of runt growth in the middle. That one again had the little burnt looking piece on top of it. That's from the freeze for sure. I do remember that had some good strong growth right after, as it was recovering from the hurricane and everything. I might leave that one on there. Yeah, let's take a look at the other side. This is really just right at the limit of what I feel like I can handle as I'm becoming an elderly person. As far as this size of a pot, this pot's heavy to begin with, and then when it's all full of substrate, obviously it's even heavier. And then idiot me goes and gets that ball cypress and now has it in that big cement mixing tub, but that's gonna get shaded out for sure. I think I will go ahead and take that one off. And just because this piece is like one of the only ones that's like that long with only a little tuft of growth on top, I'm going to go ahead and take it off, but there is a node right here. There's just a little bit of green right there. So I'm going to take it off right there. And either this piece will just take over or this piece will keep growing and it'll get a little more growth out of that node there. Pretty sure that other side will be the front and that's the back. But we'll see how it progresses.